will be available on the ADPH website. The Alabama Department of Public Health is divided into districts. We will have a 3-month pilot and then begin statewide rollout. Phase 1 of the pilot includes Autauga, Elmore, and Montgomery County, located in the East Central District. Phase 2 will include the rest of the East Central District and the Northeastern District. After that 3-month pilot period, there will be 3 rollouts. The dates reflected on the schedule indicate the dates that clinics in those areas will begin issuing eWIC cards. These are the dates that you can anticipate WIC customers beginning to shop using their eWIC cards. Again, the dates shown are the dates that the clinics begin issuing the cards. The participants will receive training on how to use their eWIC cards and should be prepared to utilize them at the store starting on those dates. It is important to remember that you will be required to accept paper food instruments from WIC customers as long as they are within valid dates. We anticipate that January 2020 we should finalize processing all paper food instruments. But if a participant comes to your store with a paper food instrument and it is within valid dates, then they should be able to use them, even if you have WIC customers coming in with their eWIC cards. The schedule and ADPH district map were mailed out in August to all authorized WIC vendors. A copy of the ADPH district map is also available on our website at alabamapublichealth.gov. The district map will allow you to determine when your store will roll out. For instance, when you see on the schedule up there on June 3rd, we'll implement the Northern District. This encompasses counties such as Morgan, Coleman, Winston, Lawrence, and other counties, and you'll be able to determine those by looking at the district map, which was mailed out and again is available on our website. So I know many of you are asking, what do you need to do to determine if your store is eWIC ready? The very first thing that you need to do is to determine what type of cash register system that you have, and will it accept an eWIC transaction. There are 2 types of systems that process eWIC transactions, which we'll review in a moment. In order to determine which system you have or what you will need to do to ensure you are eWIC ready, contact the individual that provides your current equipment to you. It is important to work closely with your electronic cash register company, as they are familiar with federal requirements regarding eWIC transaction processing and can ensure your registers are programmed correctly. No matter where you are in the rollout schedule, we recommend that you begin talking to your electronic cash register company now. It's not too soon. I've had vendors ask me, well, should I wait till closer to my rollout date? No, you can begin preparing your registers now. As I mentioned, there are 2 types of systems. The first one that we're going to briefly touch on is integrated vendors. This means the WIC software is part of the store's cash register system. Integrating WIC into the point-of-sale system and normal business processes is the preferred solution because it allows you as a vendor to manage all aspects of eWIC in one system. This includes payment, settlement, as well as conducting the transaction. It also allows for what is known as a mixed basket transaction, where a WIC customer would not have to separate their WIC foods from other items. In the mixed basket transaction, the system identifies which items are WIC approved and which items will need to be paid for using another payment method. The federal regulations require that for other payment methods, if a WIC customer is using SNAP, they would use their WIC first, SNAP second, WIC credit next, and then cash or check would follow that. But there is a sequential order that the mixed basket transaction payment would occur. We anticipate a large number of Alabama WIC vendors have integrated systems. Around 72% of all authorized WIC vendors in Alabama are part of a corporation and have an integrated system. Again, you'll need to contact your electronic cash register company to determine if your system can process an eWIC transaction. It could be that you have an integrated system and all you will need is a software upgrade to accept and process an eWIC transaction. But contacting them and having those conversations now will ensure that you're ready when your area goes live with eWIC. If you do not have an integrated system that can accept and process eWIC transactions, you will be provided with a stand-beside point-of-sale device. This is a separate device from your electronic cash register, and in some situations will require your cashiers to double scan WIC items. It also does not allow for a mixed basket transaction. The number of devices that you receive is based on the United States Department of Agriculture, Food and Nutrition Services, WIC implementation of electronic benefits transfer, related provisions, final rule, minimum lane coverage formula. I know that was a mouthful, but the United States Department of Agriculture that governs the WIC program published a final rule last year for EBT related provisions in regards to WIC, and part of that was a minimum lane coverage formula. Conduent, as I mentioned earlier, who's our eWIC service provider, is currently working to determine which Alabama vendors will require a stand-beside device. These devices will be provided by the state and maintained by the state throughout the life of the vendor's contract. After statewide rollout, stand-beside devices will only be provided by the state to new vendors that are needed for participant access, and this is in accordance with the federal regulations. So there are two types of systems, just to review. There's an integrated system and a non-integrated system, which is referred to as the stand-beside point-of-sale device. So what comes after that? What comes after determining what type of system that you have? In addition to ensuring our vendors are able to accept and process eWIC transactions, the state WIC office will also be sending and processing contract amendments and conducting vendor certification. These are two big steps to ensure Alabama is ready to implement eWIC. In order to accept eWIC, all authorized WIC vendors will be required to complete a contract amendment. The amendments will be mailed 2 months prior to your rollout. If your rollout is in June, then you will receive your amendment in April. When you receive the contract amendment, the cover letter will contain a due date. It is imperative that you return the Alabama WIC vendor contract amendment by the due date. Failure to return the amendment can result in your current WIC contract being terminated. What type of things will you see in the contract amendment? It will cover things such as eWIC transaction processing. For example, the WIC customer must approve the eWIC transaction. Store personnel cannot approve the eWIC transaction for a WIC customer. And the contract amendment also includes vendors are required to conduct a balance inquiry upon request of the WIC customer. So if you have a WIC customer that comes in and asks to run a balance inquiry prior to them shopping, then you are federally required to do that for the WIC customer. Vendors are also required to scan or manually enter the universal product codes directly from the WIC food item being purchased. Vendors are prohibited from scanning UPCs from a scan book. And vendors must adhere to the current United States Department of Agriculture eWIC operating rules, the Technical Implementation Guide, and industry standards. These documents are also available on our website. And again, I mentioned earlier that your electronic cash register company or your value-added reseller that you get your equipment from, they are familiar with the eWIC operating rules and the Technical Implementation Guide and know about industry standards. So it's just really important that you have those communications with them and start that process now. As indicated in the kickoff webinar, if you are a vendor receiving a stand-beside device, you will be required to enter into contract with Conduent as they are providing the stand-beside equipment. As I mentioned earlier, we anticipate the majority of our vendors having integrated systems and not requiring stand-beside devices. But if you do receive a stand-beside device, you must enter into contract with Conduent. This is a separate agreement from your Alabama WIC vendor contract. It is just as imperative that you return these agreements back to Conduent as soon as possible so that they can begin to ship your equipment, provide the training that's required for stand-beside devices. Conduent will not provide any training on the stand-beside device until they receive a completed agreement and the vendor has a working analog phone line or wired internet connection. Failure to return the Conduent vendor agreement can result in your Alabama WIC vendor contract being terminated because you have to be ready to accept an eWIC transaction when we go live. Therefore, if you are a vendor receiving a stand-beside device, you must adhere to the above to ensure you can continue to accept eWIC. And again, Conduent will be contacting those individuals that we anticipate in the state that will receive a stand-beside system. These systems are provided by the state during rollout and maintained by the state during rollout. And they're maintained by the state during the life of the vendor contract for those who receive one during rollout. The next big, after completing the contract amendment, and if required, completing the Conduent stand-beside agreement, the next big step in the vendor enablement process is level 3 certification. There are actually 3 levels of eWIC certification. I'm just briefly going to touch on level 1 and level 2 as they are for new systems not previously certified. Most systems have been level 1 and level 2 certified as there are over 45 states that have implemented eWIC statewide to date. These types of certifications are addressed by the cash register companies themselves, along with the eWIC service providers and sometimes state WIC staff. Those are testing of the actual system itself to ensure that it can process eWIC transactions before they are shipped out to the stores. So again, as an authorized WIC vendor, your primary focus is not going to be on level 1 and level 2 certifications. Your focus is going to be on level 3 certifications. You will be part of the level 3 certification process. They are performed in the store and include a WIC representative completing a balance inquiry, purchasing multiple items, voiding that purchase, and then purchasing a single WIC item and confirming the transaction went through. The WIC representative during a Level 3 certification also verifies that the receipt prints all the required information per the operating rules and the technical implementation guide. Level 3 certifications allow the opportunity for WIC staff to assess the readiness of the store while also educating store personnel about eWIC. The State WIC office will complete Level 3 certifications 2 weeks from your pilot or rollout date. We will review the schedule on the next slide. All systems must pass Level 3 certification prior to accepting eWIC. This chart shows the dates when the State WIC office will be conducting Level 3 certification at the stores. The dates shown reflect the time frame of when we will be conducting the visits. We do not call and schedule these visits. We don't call and say, we're going to be at your store at 1:15 on August the 1st, you need to be ready. We're going to come during that specific time frame that is showed on the slide there. It is expected that the store's cash register systems will be ready by the date shown. Being ready for Level 3 certification entails not only the cash register system being able to process an eWIC transaction, but having store personnel available to conduct the eWIC transaction. What that means is, when the WIC representative comes into your store, we notify the management of why we are there and the nature of the visit. We will go to identify the items that we're going to purchase, and then we will come through the lane and do the balance inquiry, do a multiple item purchase, void that purchase, then actually do a WIC purchase that will be a real live eWIC purchase of which you will be reimbursed for. The next big step that we have to do is eWIC training. Training is critical for a successful eWIC implementation. There are two components to eWIC training. You have store training on the actual system itself, and then state WIC office training regarding eWIC policy. How training is conducted on your cash register system depends on the type of system you have. Integrated vendors receive training from the corporation or the corporation's electronic cash register provider. Vendors utilizing the state-provided stand-beside devices will be trained by Conduent using a ship and train model. These trainings are coordinated by the vendor and Conduent. It is important to note that the State WIC office does not train on electronic cash register systems. If we receive calls from store personnel, we will instruct them to contact their management or the Conduent vendor help desk depending on their system. What we've seen in other states is that when WIC representatives go into the stores to actually do the Level 3 certifications, that the individuals did not know where the eWIC button is on the cash register. It is so important that you all learn from your cash register system company, okay, what does it mean to process eWIC in this register? So that when we come to do those Level 3 certifications, your store personnel will know what they need to do to process the transaction. Again, I just want to remind you that we do not train on the registers themselves. Like in the paper world today, sometimes I get calls from store personnel and they want to know how to run a coupon with using WIC through their register. And I can't tell them that because I'm not familiar with the register systems. So again, just please be mindful and really learn how those registers work to process eWIC transactions before your Level 3 certification date. The next type of training will be regarding eWIC policy. The State WIC office will provide a recorded method for you to train your store personnel on eWIC policy. It will be available on our website, and all authorized WIC vendors must provide acknowledgement showing that they have completed this online training method prior to accepting eWIC. All this will be forthcoming in written communication regarding the training requirements for eWIC policy. eWIC policy training will focus on the items in the Alabama WIC vendor contract amendment that I referenced earlier and the basic steps of the eWIC transaction. Vendors will also receive an addendum to the Alabama WIC vendor procedure handbook regarding specific eWIC policy. The beauty of eWIC is if the WIC customer has the card and the PIN, then they can purchase the WIC items available in their benefit balance. eWIC streamlines the WIC transaction. It removes the use of the orange card, removes the need for signature comparison, and allows the register to identify the WIC-approved foods. Over the years, I've traveled to a lot of states that are eWIC statewide, and nobody wants to go back to paper. It just really streamlines the entire process for you as a vendor. So how can you help us to have a successful eWIC implementation? We are asking you to respond to the written communication that we send in a timely manner and to meet all the due dates in those communications. As you have heard, there will be a great deal of information being mailed that requires follow-up on your part. I do want to mention that it's our understanding that there are already sales companies contacting independent retailers about eWIC equipment. Please note that the only official eWIC communication will come from the State WIC office or directly from Conduit. So if you receive a call or questionable information, don't hesitate to call us here at the State WIC office. We'll be happy to tell you if it came from us or Conduit and verify whether or not it's something that you need to follow up on in regards to your Alabama WIC vendor contract. The second thing that I'm asking you to do, and this is very important, is to review the pre-pilot food list on our website. Alabama WIC began collecting universal product codes to build our approved product list, what is known as the APL file, almost 2 years ago. We visited every store at the time and scanned every WIC-approved item in the store that we saw. There may be WIC-approved items that have entered the market since our collection efforts began. We have placed a pre-pilot food list of the universal product codes that we collected on our website. We are asking for your help in reviewing this list to identify WIC-approved items in your store that are not on the list. Instructions for reporting items not on the list is also on the website. Note, this list does not include the PLUs or UPC codes for fresh fruits and vegetables. Vendors will be required to map fresh fruits and vegetables to the International Federation of Produce Standards PLU codes, which will be included in Alabama's official APL file. We strongly recommend that you look at this list. Alabama we do have a lot of branded products, but there are also a lot of, say for instance, peanut butter, the dried peas and beans. There's just such a wide variety of those that are WIC eligible, and we just want to make sure that we collect all those for our official approved product list file. It's known as the APL file. If items are not in this file when we go live with eWIC, eWIC shoppers come up to the register, they won't be able to purchase that item. That is one of the benefits of eWIC. If it is not in the APL file, it is not, you cannot purchase it. Now, you know, there could be 3 reasons for that. We could have missed it in our collection efforts. It could truly be a WIC item but not be available in that participant's WIC balance, or it's truly not a WIC approved item. So we're just really asking for your help to look at this list, share it with your wholesalers, and have them look over it. We did provide it in an Excel format, and we will be putting it on the website in an Excel format. At this time, it is only available on the website in a PDF, but we will get an Excel format of it so that it is easily sortable. And I have also emailed that out to the individual vendors that are in the email list that I have in an Excel format. But these are 2 really important things that we're asking that you help us with to have a successful eWIC implementation in Alabama. That is all that I had today to cover for our second call. We do plan to have more calls going forward in the future, but we are mindful that the holiday season is upon us, and we do not plan to hold one during another one in November or December. If the next call will probably be at the first of the year. If at any time you have any questions, you can submit them to the email address that is on the screen. And if anybody has any questions now, I'll wait a few minutes to see if any of them come up through the chat with presenter feature that is available on the left-hand side of your screen. And I have one question about the contract amendments. If you are part of a corporation, your contract amendment will be sent directly to the corporate address. The contract amendments will be processed in the exact same way that the current eWIC vendor contracts are processed. So if you are part of a corporation, that goes to the corporate address. So there's a question about bagged fruits, vegetables with UPC codes. Again, we are requiring that all vendors map their fresh fruits and vegetables to the PLU codes. And more information will come out regarding mapping in the future. We will do a lot more education on mapping because we have heard from the industry that that can sometimes be challenging, but we will provide additional information on how to map to the International Federal Produce Standards. And I think I see a question about the stand-beside systems and the cost. There will be no cost for the stand-beside system or maintenance for those individuals that receive the stand-beside systems prior to statewide rollout. Once a state is rolled out completely statewide and all clinics have gone live with eWIC, any new vendors will be required to pay for those stand-beside systems, and it will only be provided to those that are needed for participant access. That is, once we're rolled out statewide. Prior to that, the coverage for the cost of the stand-beside system and the training that is provided in the ship and train method phone and over-the-phone training that you receive from Conduit, there will not be a fee for that. I'll wait just a minute or two to see if any more questions come up. And again, at any time that you have questions, you can send them to our email that is on the screen. And I ask that you also can check our website. As I mentioned, this webinar and the previous one will be recorded and available for viewing at a later date. And then we're trying to publish information and educational material on the website as well regarding eWIC. I won't keep, I know everybody's time is very valuable. I don't see any additional questions coming up. Well, So I got a question about an item that somebody's already found that is not on the list that is available on our website, the pre-pilot food list. We ask that you follow the instructions that are on the website about how to submit that to the nutritionist to ensure that it meets the WIC requirements. There's a form you must complete, and then you send it to a specific email address, and all that information is on the website. At any time, you're welcome to call the state WIC office and ask any questions about how to submit a UPC. So I have a question that I'm not sure I understand, but I'll try to cover it. It's, will a new WIC customer ever use a paper WIC? On that rollout schedule, once a clinic goes live with eWIC, they will not issue, I'm going to try to put it back on the screen, they will not issue any more paper in that clinic once they go live. However, they will be, benefits are issued in 3 months increments. So if somebody came to the clinic, say in those 3 pilot counties, if I went to Autauga County Health Department in February, I was issued 3 months worth of checks. So I'll have 3 months worth of paper, and I won't get my eWIC card till those paper checks run out. And again, if a WIC customer comes into the store and has a paper check that is still within the valid dates, vendors are required to continue processing those. We anticipate that all the paper should be processed through this system by January of 2020. I have a question about, are there special procedures if the credit card machine goes down and you have to call the purchase in? There, in eWIC, there is no what is known as store and forward. If the machine is down, you can't process an eWIC transaction. So we have been told in the industry, and the standards indicate that there is minimal downtime in eWIC. We've heard that downtime in SNAP is much more frequent than what they've seen in eWIC, but if the machine's down, then the WIC customer you can't process that transaction. And I have another question. Can we take eWIC from another state? No, it is not transferable. The eWIC will be specific to Alabama. You cannot use an Alabama eWIC card in Florida. And say, for example, Florida is statewide now with eWIC. Unless they're authorized in our state, they can't. It's non-transferable. You can't use Alabama in another state. And there'll be another benefit of eWIC is that there are no more manual vouchers. So if the system is down, you won't see those manuals that we write currently now. If our MIS system is down or there's an issue with a food prescription, we can issue a manual food instrument. But in eWIC, that won't be an option. So as I mentioned, if the system's down, there's no alternative to processing that eWIC transaction. But we have been told that there is minimal downtime in the eWIC industry. So I think, unless a question pops up in the next couple seconds, I believe that is all we have today. I realize I did not tell you who I was. My name's Stacy Newman. I'm Director of the Vendor Management Branch, and I value each and every one of the vendors that are on the phone. I recognize a lot of the names, and I appreciate the support that you provide the Alabama WIC program, and I truly support you participating on this call to hear this information to ensure that we have a successful eWIC implementation in Alabama. And I look forward to talking to you soon. And don't forget to send questions that come to mind after this webinar send them to the email address or give me a call, and we'd be happy to address them. So we appreciate everybody, and that'll conclude today's webinar.